Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon, all dear students, respected guardians, and honorable colleagues who are watching this online class. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Okay, dear students, today I was supposed to tell you about right form of verbs. So you all are most welcome to Rangpur Online School, and I am Muhammad Abdul Muttalib, senior teacher, Police Lines School and College, Rangpur. Welcome you all to my online class. So dear students, in my next class, in my previous class, I told you something on substitution table, and I declared that today I will talk to you with about right form of verbs, and I told you that this chapter is somewhat difficult. In this chapter you have some problems, you have many problems, I know, but why the problem is, that is the question. We all the students study on right form of verbs from the very beginning, but we make more and more mistakes on this chapter. So my target is to give you some hints and techniques, some formula, so that we can minimize our mistakes in the examination hall. So dear students, today I have written a topics, right form of verbs part 1, because I will need 4 classes on these topics. After 4 classes, I will try my best to prove that the right form of verb is not a difficult one. If we have some techniques to fill in the gaps, then we can do it very successfully. So after 4 days, I will try to prove you before you that this is not difficult one. So today, our target is that the right form of verbs, our shortcomings and the ways to overcome them. Okay, dear students, so what is the motto, what is the target of my today's class? My today's class is target is only 2. Number 1, on the topics right form of verbs, what are our shortcomings, what are our problems, and how we can solve our problems. Okay, right? So today we will focus on only 2 topics, only 2 things. Number 1, to solve the right form of verbs, what is our shortcomings? So number 1, this is point number 1. What is our shortcomings? What is our problem? Why we cannot do successfully in the exam hall? This is number 1. And number 2, the ways to overcome them. So as we have some problems, we have to find out some techniques, some ways to overcome them. So today I will focus on these 2 topics, and my class will be end. In the next part, that means in part 2, part 3 and part 4, within these 4 parts I will finish my lecture on right form of verbs. Okay, dear students, so be clear. I would like to tell you again, I am not teaching you the right form of verbs. My target is that on this online class, all the classes, my target is to give you some techniques and hints on various topics. So today we are going to start on the techniques of right form of verbs. So today we will learn just 2 things. What is our shortcomings, what is our problems in on the topics right form of verbs, and the ways to overcome them. So thank you very much. So let us go. So dear students, to make you understand what is your problem, I have to show you something. At first, this is a question on right form of verbs. You are seeing that this is a context. So in this context, we have to use the verb given in the box. This is the present system of question. You know, all the questions are contextual, I told you in my previous classes. So this is a context. In this context, I have to use this verb. So in the boxes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 verbs. But all the verbs in the box are in a base form. Meaning they are just the verbal word. They are in a base form, in the very primary form. But if you look at the answer, when I have used them in the context, the answer neglect, this is base form, where two places they are same. But what happens? This, it is approach, but when I have written the answer, this is approaches. In the box it is read, here reading, but collect and collect is the same. PPR, here it is PPR, but here PPR. This is memorize and this is memorize, these are the same. Understanding, but here it is understand. Here thinking, in the box this is think. Answer, this is the same one, but could have done, but in the box we have only do. So dear students, what am I going to tell you? I want to tell you, so in the box there are some base form of the verbs, but when we have written in the answer sheet, but the verb has been changed. So this is the main theme of the right form of verbs. Now some verbs have been used here as a base form. Again, some verbs have been changed their forms. So this is the question. So we will fill in the blanks with the verb, no doubt, but be careful. We must have to use the right form of that verbs. That is the question. So dear students, in a contextual grammar, we have to earn the two types of techniques. Two types of techniques means, so this is a verb and these are the blanks. These are the gaps here. So number one, I have to match the context with any of the verb. So many students dash their studies from the beginning of the year. So number one task of you, so I must have to match this sentence with a verb from here. So this is number one. That means I have to match the context first. Now, for example, the many students, we have matched a word neglect. So many students neglect their studies. Now, so I have matched the verb, but after matching the verb in the gaps, now in the second time, in your steps 2, you must have to use the grammar now on this very particular word. So dear students, what I am going to tell you, to fill in the gaps in the right form of verbs, I must have to think in two different ways. Number one, at first, I have to think how I can match this context with a word, because if I cannot match the context in meaning, my answer will not be right. So my number one task, I have to match the context with the verb. Then when I will match it, then on that particular verb, then I will use grammar. So to use the grammar, I will have need some techniques. Without techniques, I cannot cope with this context. Though, so in this way, I have to maintain. So here, dear students, just one point I have told you, given you already, that number one, I have to match a verb with the context first, because without matching with the context, I will not get number. When I will match a word with the context, then with that particular one, that particular word, I will use the grammatical rules. What are the rules of using verbs? Then I will use them. Here, this is the point. So, dear student, when I will go to solve these questions, I have to think in these two ways. I will match the context, then I will use grammar on right form of verbs. But what we generally do, this is our present question pattern, this is the contextual question, but we the students, how we learn generally, I will show you now. So, dear students, what do we do generally? We memorize the following rules. So, I have showed you the questions of at present what we have to answer in the SSC examination, in the any examination for the class 9 and 10. But what we generally learn as a student, I know what we do. We memorize some rules like this. If the sentence become universal truth, the main verb will be in present indefinite form. So, in this way, we memorize some rules, at least 40 or 50 rules, or someone 30 or 37 or 35, or some students have memorized the 70 or 80 rules, I know it. Like this, example, the earth move round the sun. So, the students memorize the rules, and in the rules, there are some examples like this, the earth move round the sun. Then when they study on the rules, they, oh yes, the earth is a universal truth. So, I have to use move is a present form. So, dear students, again, if there is any time mentioning adverb in a sentence, the main verb will be in present indefinite form. Example, Rohim go to school every day. So, dear students, these are the rules, and the example is telling you, oh, here there is an every day. So, I have to use here present indefinite tense, and Rohim is a third person singular number. So, I have to use goes. Okay, it's okay. These rules are very, very, very much important, no doubt. Obviously, undoubtedly, they are very much important. But dear students, we have a great problem that we learn these rules, but we cannot apply these rules in the context. This is our number one problem. What am I going to tell you? So, dear student, like this, just I have given you 4 example here. If there are adverbs like now, at this moment, the main verb will be in present continuous form. So, you have understood example also, he read a book now. So, there is a now in the sentence. So, I have to use it in present continuous tense. So, the answer will be he is reading a book now. So, a student, when he or she reads the rules and the example, he or she can understand the rules very easily. But what is the problem? When they go to apply this rule in the context, then they cannot understand. They have made hundreds and thousands of mistakes. So, last number example, if there are adverbs like just now, already, the main verb will be in present perfect form. So, the example is they already finished the work. So, in the sentence, so there is already. So, a student can understand, oh, here is already. So, I have to use the finish in present perfect form. So, they have already finished the work. So, okay, dear student, it's okay, no problem. These rules are important. These rules are very, very much important, very much necessary. But the question is, I have memorized 40 rules or 50 rules, 60 rules. As a teacher, I have memorized 45 rules, and at any time, I can tell these rules in a row. But what is the problem? The problem is that when I go to the context to fill in the gaps, then I cannot understand. I cannot match the rules in the context. So dear students, okay, now I am going to tell you one thing. These rules, if the sentence becomes present indefinite and the subject becomes third person singular number, then I must have to use s or es with the verb. We know it, we can memorize them. But when these rules were written in the English grammar books. At that time, the question pattern was like this. So I have written a question of the past times here. What was the question pattern against these rules? The question: rewrite the verbs given in the bracket of the following sentences. So dear students, but just if you look at the here, this was the questions in the exams in the past times when these rules were written, when these general rules were written for the students. At that time the question was like this: the moon shine dash night. So the moon is an universal truth, then the student can understand, oh yes, it will be shines, because the verb will be in the present indefinite form. Again, number B, Nasima go to school regularly. So as I have memorized in previously earlier that if any sentence has any time mentioning adverb like regularly, daily, occasionally, then I have to use the verb in the present indefinite form. Then I can understand here the go will be in the present indefinite form. So Nasima is a third person singular. Then I have to use Nasima goes to school regularly. Again, they read books now. So the now is given here directly. So I have memorized the rules earlier. I know if there is any now in a sentence, then the verb should be in present continuous tense. Then I will write, okay, they are reading books now. So it is very easy. If I memorize the rules earlier, then if I get any hints in the sentence, in a detached sentence separately, then it is very easy for me to remember the rules and to answer the questions. So dear student, again, she visited the place yesterday. She visited the place yesterday. So here is an adverb, time mentioning adverb. This is yesterday. So the rules is telling you, oh, yesterday. So I must have to use the verb in the past form. So anyone can remember. So she visited the place yesterday. So dear students, I am not telling you that these rules is not important. I know these rules are very, very much important. But with these rules, I must have to add some new techniques, add some new hints and some new policy, add some new formula, so that I can cope with these rules when I will go to solve any context. So what is our questions? I will show you now. This is our questions. So I showed you the questions which was in the past times when the rules were written for the students, so that they could memorize the rules and they could answer the questions. But your question pattern has been changed, dear students. So now this is our question pattern. So I have memorized yesterday, every day, yesterday, now, at this moment, just now, universal truth, so that, so dash that, while, and then no sooner had dash than, as soon as has dash. In this way, we have memorized many rules. But what will happen? When I will go to a context like this, I will not get any reference directly of the rules what I have memorized earlier. So what will happen? Then when I will go to the context, then I cannot recollect all the rules, though I can recollect sometimes, but I cannot connect my rules and my context. As a result, my answers become haphazard in the questions. Among the 10 answers, sometimes my 5 answers is right, another are wrong. So this is our problem. So dear students, what I am going to tell you, I must memorize the rules, no doubt, because that rules of tenses are very much important. But with that rules, as our question pattern, this question pattern have been changed. The question is contextual, but the rules are not contextual. So I have to memorize the rules, and I have to learn some new techniques, so that I can communicate, I can connect my learnings with the context. Because Contextual grammar is different thing. I am telling you every day. Contextual grammar is a very much technique based grammar. If you don't have any techniques, if you don't be a musician, don't be a technician, you cannot be perfect in the contextual grammar. So dear students, so what I am going to tell you. So what are our shortcomings? So dear students, I am going to tell you what is our shortcomings. I have come to the points. Then I will tell you the ways to overcome them, and our today's class will be finished. So how many time I have lost already? So okay, dear students. So oh yeah, I have now I will tell you what is our shortcomings. So I have made a list here. So what are our shortcomings? Number one. So dear students, if you have pen and papers, you can take down it, because it will be very much essential for you to be perfect in to solve the questions in right form of verbs. We cannot connect the rules and the given context in the question paper. This is our number one problems. I told you in my lecture that our number one problems, we learn some rules, we memorize some rules, but we cannot apply it in the context, meaning we cannot connect the rules and the given context in the question paper. This is our number one problems. So number two problems, we cannot apply the rules what we learn in the context. That means we have learned, I told you a few moments ago that the rules we have memorized earlier, we cannot apply the rules in the context. This is our number two problem. Number three, what is our shortcoming? We do not try to understand the context properly. Sometimes as students, we cannot understand the context, understand the meaning of the context. It is one of our shortcomings, it may be. And sometimes we have lack of vocabulary stock. So dear students, and vocabulary stock is another problem, because sometimes our vocabulary is very low, very limited. As a result, we cannot use them properly in the gaps. And 1, 2, 3, 4 and number 5, sometimes we cannot understand the meaning of the context and the verbs given in the box. So this is not the problems of all the students. There are some students whose problem is that they cannot understand the Bengali meaning of the passage, and sometimes they cannot understand the Bengali meaning of the verbs given in the box. But this problem is not reasonable, dear students. So this problem, we must have to overcome them. How we will overcome, I will tell you. Finally, we have the lack of enough practice. In the present, at present, the students, you do not want to practice at home more and more. But we remember, in the contextual grammar, there is no alternative of practice. So you must have to practice at home more and more. So dear students, now I am going to show you what are the ways to overcome our shortcomings. So okay, dear students, now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. But dear students, in my next class, in my coming class, I will discuss before you on only 3 techniques. Number 1, finite and non-finite verbs, active and passive form of verbs, subject-verb agreement. So dear student, we have to learn the following techniques. So I have written here 5 techniques. So finite and non-finite verbs, active and passive form of verbs, subject-verb agreement, general rules of tense, and finally we have to practice the context more and more. So dear students, general rules of tenses, I know many of you, as you are the students of class 9 and 10, you have memorized them already at home, and you have to practice. But I will tell you in my next class on these 3 topics. So just remember, finite and non-finite verbs, active and passive form of verbs, subject verb agreement. So dear students, these 3 points does not mean that just I will tell you the definition and their classification. No, just we will learn the techniques, how I can find, I indicate how I can identify a finite and a non-finite verb in a context, how I can use them in a context, and I must have to know the active and passive form of a verb. And when I will use in a context, then I must have to understand how the techniques, how I can understand, how I can indicate an active and passive form. And I must have to know the subject verb agreements. So if we, as a student, if we can learn these 3 techniques completely, and if I can use these 3, if I can apply these 3 techniques in the context successfully, I hope that your problem will be overcome, because these techniques, I think, will make you benefited. So dear students, today I have given a long time lectures, so I have to finish now. So dear student, I told you 3 techniques. Please try to remember finite and non-finite verbs and their techniques, active and passive form of verbs, their techniques, and I told you subject verb agreements and techniques. Hopefully my next class will be held in the next Tuesday. Until then, Allah Hafiz. May Allah bless you all. Thank you very much.